got this shit knocking low.
Hi, everybody. It is Steve Willis, and this is the Cheap Seats Podcast. We are back again. Isn't this lovely? And I am riding with my boy for all time, the one and only NIU's very own Steve Detterman. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. It's fantastic to be able to do this again. Both of us a little bit of a distance apart, but isn't it great what technology allows us to do?
Oh man, it's fantastic. I mean, you're down there sweating away in that Alabama winter. Wow.
Yeah, it's the Alabama winter right now is 38, so it's not so much sweating at this point.
Really, I'm kind of
Yes.
surprised. I expected it to be a lot warmer than that. Well, I'm of course up here looking at snow on my back door.
Yes, I
up here in
understand
northern
that.
Indiana.
So, there's a little bit of a 10-hour difference, but by gosh, technology allows us to do this again, and I couldn't be happier. I've been waiting for this day.
Man, me too, man. It's been way too long. Well, let's let everybody know what this is. This, of course, is the Cheap Seats Podcast. I am Steve Willis. That is Steve Detterman. And we are going to bring you basically a condensed version of what we used to do. We used to do a 2-hour show together on XERS Radio. Stepped aside from that, and now we are doing a 20-minute podcast, and
Yep.
we're doing series of 20-minute podcasts. And hopefully, if you like this one, you enjoy this one, maybe you can listen to a few more, and we'll keep that going for you. And we're going to try and keep it entertaining, and you just keep listening and liking, and of course, if you are listening,
Invite your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, like and subscribe, and we will definitely put more out as it goes. We also would appreciate topic ideas, and you can always do that by commenting on YouTube, or you can go to our Facebook page. If you haven't followed the show on Facebook, go to the Cheap Seats with Steve and Steve. Just search it in Facebook. You will find it, like it, and drop us a line. Throw it on our wall. Just say, hey, how about this for an idea? I want to hear what you guys think about X, Y, and Z. We will be more than happy to throw that in the mix and get one out for you. So what we're talking about today, it was a topic that I had put on Facebook, and it was I thought it was actually a great topic. And the idea was there have been several injuries and several events and several things that have happened in the sports world that have dynamically changed things in the sports world. All right, in each sport in particular, maybe on a team, or maybe just one person's career or something like that. And I believe that there is enough of those that people just kind of at this point just kind of look at, oh well, maybe it's kind of passe when something happens, and you don't really pay that much attention to it. But sometimes you don't think about what would have happened had this not have happened, or had that not have happened. And this, I think, is a great opportunity for us to look at those and say, hey, here's an idea. So let's look at these real quick. I want to get to just a couple. I know one really stuck in my mind. I'll give you an example of what we're talking about here. This one stuck in my mind. I think this is a great example. If Drew Bledsoe did not get hurt, Tom Brady would have never come in, taken over the Patriots, and have the legacy that we have now. Now, he may have later, but there's a reasonable chance to say, well, he would not have done what he did.
Steve, you got to remember that during that year, the Patriots were on a pace to make it to the playoffs. I mean, they were going to be in the playoffs. Bledsoe had done the job of getting them ready for the playoffs, and right there. And, so, I mean, it's not like if he wasn't hurt, he was just a middling quarterback. He was doing a great job.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of one of those things at the time when Tom Brady took over, a lot of people were, a lot of Patriots fans were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, when Bledsoe comes back, he's going to start again, right?" And now now that we know, what happened and how everything went down, everybody's thinking, "Oh, wow, this is a fantastic idea." But that did not get that it didn't necessarily get met with the same enthusiasm as we have now. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh no, I agree with you. I mean, and the thing is that the Tom Brady part of this whole thing even moves on even further. Because remember, you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, correct?
Yes, yes, I am. I am a
And and
diehard
and
Chiefs
you
fan.
and you can remember a little bit later, Tom Brady got hurt, missed a whole season,
Yeah,
and they had a gentleman step in, Matt Castle, took him to the playoffs. That sent Matt Castle to the Kansas City Chiefs, which set them back a couple of years after that.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I
That
mean,
that ended up being Matt Castle's big ticket right there.
right. So I mean, and that's but the whole thing with Brady and Bledsoe, Brady, took advantage of. I mean, we see a lot of quarterbacks get hurt, and we see a lot of people, a lot of second stringers or backups step in and not be able to do it. But what Tom Brady did was unbelievable. But to think that maybe he would not have gotten that chance unless that injury.
Right.
Now I'm going to take you to another one that it hit me really. I mean, it's something that I brought up on that Facebook page way back when, and I believe it was in 1992. A young man known as the Magic Man up in Green Bay turned his ankle, had to miss a game. In came this guy that the Packers had just gotten from the Atlanta Falcons by the name of Brett Favre. Brett Favre did not leave the starting lineup for I think the next almost 20 years.
Right.
And that is another one that there would have not have been a Brett Favre because Mikowski was the young up and coming quarterback for the Packers. He was leading them and they were winning.
Right.
But Favre came in and took over.
And when you talk about Brett Favre, a lot of people remember, because remember, two generations, much like Tom Brady, two generations of football fans got to watch Brett Favre play. He had played for that
Yes.
long. Now, a lot of people, especially in that second generation, just they they think of Brett Favre as this fantastic entity who has always been good. He's always been fantastic. He's always been this great winner. But he did not come in heralded to the NFL
No.
like that. In fact, he was so unheralded that when Paul Tagliabue it was Paul Tagliabue, right?
Back at that point, yes, it was.
Yeah, he attempted to read his name on the card during the NFL draft, and he couldn't even get his name correct. He was, I think, he pronounced it like Brett Favre or something,
Yeah,
or
he was
Favor or something like that.
yeah,
So I mean, this was an unknown kid from down in the South in Mississippi that
yep.
nobody has ever heard of. He
Nope,
goes to the
Southern
Falcons.
Mississippi.
Yeah, he goes to the Falcons, and then he gets traded to the Packers, and he wasn't traded in an effort for the Packers to look for a brand new quarterback. As you said, they had Don Majkowski. They had everything they needed at quarterback. Brett Favre just kind of happened to be a little insurance policy, and boy,
He was
did they cash in on that.
he was someone that Rod Wolf loved, and Ron Wolf wanted him as a quality backup. And by God, I mean, he came in, and like you said, 20 years later, he was still there. But and the one thing about it is you got to remember, Brett Favre set the standard for consistent games played for a long period of time, and and you got to figure how many times he was injured, and you could see in the back of his mind going, nah, I'm not going to take that day. I'm not going to go out. I know what happens when you go sit on the sidelines.
Yeah,
I'm not going
yeah,
to do that.
exactly. He firsthand was a prime
Yes,
example of why you don't go sit on the sidelines and you don't
there
take
you
a day
go.
off. So, but he still is, he still is regarded as one of the NFL's greatest Iron Men, and he got his
I,
start because of an injury to a player that was not on his way out. He wasn't, at the end of his career. It was a great player. You can think of other examples, especially in the NFL, like Trent Green. He was the reason why Kurt
Yep.
Warner
Oh yeah.
was who he was. I mean, Kurt Warner, let's face it, he was sacking groceries a couple of weeks prior to showing up to the St. Louis Rams facility and leading them to a Super Bowl by the end of the year. So there
Well,
there are
and
great
the thing
reasons for this.
is you can also take a look at a couple other things. I mean, there was a football injury to a quarterback that affected three different teams. Back a little back a little ways, there was a gentleman out in San Diego by the name of Drew Brees. Drew Brees was coming up to his contract year. He was having a good year, leading the Chargers into the playoffs. And then remember, he hurt his shoulder, and he was going to be a free agent. But the Chargers had drafted Philip Rivers. I think he was a third-year pro at that time. They wanted to look into him. Miami Dolphins, who had Lou Saban, you know that, or I mean Nick Saban
Nick Saban.
as their coach back then.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, old Nick Saban. Nick Saban was interested in Breeze and tried to was trying to get him there. But then there was another injury up in Minnesota to a gentleman by the name of Dante Culpepper, and he was coming back. Saban had a choice between the two, and as good a coach as Nick Saban is, he actually picked Dante Culpepper over Breeze, and they made the contract with Culpepper. And the Saints were the only ones that really wanted Breeze and really pushed for him. And if you take a look at the change in the history of those three teams, the Saints went on. Breeze went there, as we know. They went on to win the Super Bowl. Dolphins haven't even had a sniff at the Super Bowl since then, and neither really have the Chargers.
Now, let me throw a slightly different angle. I remember that whole scenario, and I thought to myself, sometime after everything went down, the smoke had cleared on all that, I had thought to myself, if Dante Culpepper and the Minnesota Vikings had not had that 15-1 season the year
Right?
before and just missed the Super Bowl, would Nick
Yep.
Saban went after Dante Culpepper, or would Drew Brees have gone to the Miami Dolphins?
And that's a good thought. But it, it just comes down to those injuries. I think that what they were looking at is that I think Culpepper's injury was a leg injury,
Right.
and then Breeze was the shoulder, and I think the shoulder injury with a quarterback frightened the Dolphins a little bit more than the leg.
And that makes sense. I mean, it really
Yeah,
kind of it should really, if you think about it, you think, oh my God, this guy's going to be throwing the football for us. We want to make
right.
sure that his shoulders are going to be good. But that was the knock on Drew Brees from everybody
Yeah.
in the league. He wasn't just looked at by two teams. When he became a free agent, he was looked at by a lot of teams, and they all had
Oh yeah.
said the same thing. Well, his shoulder, boy, we don't know. We don't know how he's going to come back from that
Hey,
shoulder. Well,
now
looks
we know
looks
how
like
he
yeah,
came
looks
back
like
from
he
that
came back
shoulder.
pretty well, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to move to a couple other sports. We've stuck in football, and
Yes,
I
absolutely.
wanted to move to baseball because there's one I brought up that I was always one that when you talk about injuries, and this was actually a move that really wasn't by an injury. It was basically someone calling in sick, and that gentleman happened to be Wally Pipp of the New York Yankees. Called in with a headache, and the Yankees propped out this 22-year-old named Lou Gehrig. And again, you talk about the Iron Man. Lou Gehrig was there for what, 2,000 games?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Lou
He,
Gehrig
and
was
that
truly an Iron Man.
so I mean, and that's a situation where you take a look at, not even just an injury, but a missed game. How it affects, because Wally Pipp was not a bad player. Wally Pipp was an all-star, but I think Luke Gehrig in his first game, just killed it. They kept him in there, and he kept doing it, and all of a sudden Wally Pipp became an afterthought.
And that is a fantastic example of how one team's destiny could change forever, but also one person's career. Actually, all of these really, if you think about it, have been fantastic examples of one
Oh yeah.
person's career. Now, I want to throw another angle at you here.
Okay.
This particular situation changed an entire sport.
Okay.
That situation is the death of Dale Earnhardt or Dale
Oh
Earnhardt Sr. Now,
yes,
some
definitely.
some of these we've been talking about. Well, it changes the dynamics of one team or one player or a couple of teams or something like that. That actually changed the entire sport When Dale Earnhardt Sr. slammed into the wall at Daytona, the entire racing world came to a screeching halt. And I use that, no pun intended.
No, no, and it changed forever at
It
that point.
it truly did. They spent the entire season plus the following off season doing nothing but looking into safety, changing
Right.
regulations on the tracks, adding walls. I mean, millions
Well,
and
what,
millions of dollars were
how
spent
many
to.
times how many times did they change their helmets?
Oh yeah, yeah. They
I mean,
changed multiple
they
helmets.
changed.
The Hans
Yeah, they
device
changed
became
everything.
a mandatory thing, which is a thing that they were using in IRL and stuff like that prior to, but it never made it to NASCAR really. And a lot of the older drivers, they complained at first, but they realized that, hey, that could have been me. So
Yeah.
they realized that, look, this is really
Well,
for the
if
best. But this
and
this
the thing
became an
is,
enormous game changer for the entire sport and auto
well,
racing in general.
and I agree. And the thing is that if you take a look at that accident, I mean, it wasn't horrific. I mean, it wasn't where everything blew up and there are pieces all over the place.
Right, right.
But just how it happened, it changed everything. It just changed everything, and it was something that, as you said, it changed the whole sport.
Yeah,
You know,
and there are drivers out there now, and there have been accidents since, big ones too.
oh yeah,
And there are drivers that I think now they could actually thank all of the research
oh yeah,
and everything for lessening any damage that could have been done to any of these younger drivers that have felt the um I guess the spoils of all of this and
right,
enjoyed these safer cars and the safer breakaway walls and stuff like that these tracks have put in, especially the speed tracks like Talladega and Daytona and
right.
so forth. And
Well,
it is it was a game changer for the entire sport, and it's actually bled across to other sports. Obviously, amongst the NASCAR, when they go into their minor leagues and stuff like that, they've also added some of these devices, but also in some of the Formula One racing and stuff like
oh
that,
yeah,
they've started to look into some of the technology that NASCAR has developed for their own sport. So this has been so much bigger than just one team or one person,
right.
one driver. This has been across not only NASCAR, but really, if you think about it, other platforms of
Oh,
racing.
I agree. Now another thing that we had something that's groundbreaking, something that we hear about it and how it never happened. You know, the pitcher by the name of Tommy John.
Yes,
You know, Tommy
yes.
John was a great pitcher. He was with the Yankees. And we know everything about Tommy John surgery now. He had the surgery that to repair his shoulder. After he had the rotator cuff and everything else, and they took care of that. And by God, I mean, how many people now do you hear about where they have the surgery and they're back playing within a year, whereas as prior to that, if you had that injury, you were done forever.
Yeah, the Tommy John injury was, or well, it was, before it was even called that. That injury was a death sentence for any pitcher.
Yes. Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, Tommy John, obviously, the reason why it's named after him is he was the first successful pitcher to undergo that surgery and then come in and become not only serviceable but quite successful.
Right.
So yeah, it was a fantastic moment in
Well, I
medicine, really,
yeah.
on top of the sport of baseball, but in medicine as well,
Right.
because that particular injury to the elbow and to the arm, it's most noted in pitchers, but it can be other walks of life as well. I mean,
Right. Well,
that
think
it's
I think
huge.
in the honor of time, we should probably just do some quick hits of different things that we talked about. a couple different injuries or something that changed the sport. I'll give you Gale Sayers when he hurt his knee.
Yeah, that's a great
I mean,
one.
if you take a look at what he had been doing for the Chicago Bears and how everything, once he hurt his knee, he was never the same. And but I mean, we also saw someone fight back from a knee
Yeah.
injury, and so I mean that was something that that was an injury that was very horrific for the Bears.
Yep. I'll throw another one out at you real quick. Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor. If those
Oh
two
yeah.
hadn't been hurt, what they were doing for the Chicago Cubs starting rotation, I really think the Cubs, instead of having to worry about getting emergency pitching, they could have focused on offense and
Yep.
changed their entire fortunes for about 10 years.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, on that I had them written down. That whole franchise. I mean, that was the future at that point. Another thing that we had talked about a little bit earlier. How about the shot from Mike Eruzione in the 1980 Olympics against the Russians? How that changed, U.S. hockey and how it's looked at and how it was looked at in the world.
Absolutely. Throw another one out there, and this is actually something on a completely different angle. It was a non-sport related injury. Tiger Woods, and his social life, how it really got into and affected his gameplay, and then eventually his back injury and stuff like that.
Yep.
But if you think about it, uh, all the
That
jokes that
his
all the jokes
his
that
that
can
was
easily get made about Tiger Woods, I will tell you this. I mean, who cared about golf until he came back?
right. I mean, and the thing is that where was he at? When that all of a sudden came out, and then what happened at that point? I
Right.
mean, this was a guy everybody's talking. Hey, he's going to break all the records. He's going to win so many, Grand Slams. I mean, he's got everything. He's going to have all this, all the golfing history and everything else. That came out, and all of a sudden, Tiger went from standing at number one to I don't think he was ranked for a while.
Right. Exactly.
So, so I mean, a
It
couple things that really make a difference.
yeah, it was an
Um,
enormous thing. It really
Yep.
was.
Yeah. I'll give you another one, and this is in the sport of hockey also. It was back a ways. Remember how they used to have the goalposts, the nets in hockey? They used to have them on, in the poles and the stakes and the ice and everything else to
Yeah.
get those. They just move.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe it was Mark Howe went in, hit it. It came off, and he actually was impaled by one of those. And that's
Yes.
and that's when it led to them. They remember they started for a while. They were trying to use magnets,
Right.
and then they couldn't get it on there. Now they use what they use, but it was that injury changed the whole sport as far as how they handled their equipment.
Right. I'll give you
And that being the hockey net.
I'll give you one last one, then we're going to wrap it up. How many records would have been completely destroyed had Bo Jackson not destroyed his hip?
No, most definitely. I mean,
Absolutely.
and not just in football, but you got to remember he was such a two-way sport.
Yeah.
What he did on the baseball diamond was unbelievable too.
Yeah, a lot of people think Bo Jackson, they think the Raiders, but they forget he was actually a fantastic baseball player. The Kansas City Royals, if I remember right.
Kansas City, and then for the White Sox,
Yeah, and
he
then
finished his
eventually for
career
the
at the
White
White
Sox.
Sox.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's like I said, we could go on and on for this thing
Yep.
for hours. In fact, we may end up coming up with another episode where we cover some of the things that we didn't cover. So if you can think of a story, or you can think of an injury, or you can think of an event that dynamically changed a game, or dynamically changed a career, or a team, or something like that, go ahead and drop it in the comments. Drop it in the comments, and we'll make note of it. And you know what? If we have enough to do another one of these, I would love to do another one of these, because the what if factor is always a great way to start a conversation
There
on
you
this,
go.
and it always gets the fantasy juices flowing as to, wow, how would that have turned out, like this, that, and the other, and it really gets you thinking about things. So it's really cool, and this was one heck of a podcast. We got to wrap it up. We're getting short on time, but Steve, Love to talk to you again. I enjoyed this. I
Yeah,
can't. I
I
had
did
so much
too.
fun.
It's been too long, and let's just keep it going, sir.
Sounds good. Let's do another one.
Great.
All right, and that other one's going to be posted here very shortly. So you guys, thanks for listening. Like I said, like and subscribe if you're watching us or listening to us on YouTube. Facebook, The Cheap Seats with Steve and Steve. Go to the Facebook page, like it, and interact. Give us some ideas. We would love to hear your show ideas. For Steve Detterman, this is Steve Willis signing off. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.